Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really jumping into a devotional text.
Yeah, and we're zeroing in on this call to, well, to faithfulness, right to the end.
Exactly. Our source is Revelation chapter 2, specifically verses 1 to 11. And there's this key verse that kind of anchors it all.
Be faithful, even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown. Powerful stuff.
It really is. And our mission today, for you listening, is to sort of pull out the wisdom here.
Right. How do we actually, maintain dedication, maintain love in our own lives, regardless of what's going on?
Because let's be honest, people listening might be facing challenges, maybe feeling a bit disconnected.
Or just, going through the motions, like the churches we're looking at.
We've got these two snapshots, don't we? Ephesus first. Busy, doing lots, but maybe losing that initial spark.
Yeah, that passion. And then you have Smyrna. Totally different. Suffering, poor, facing slander, but strong.
So two contrasting pictures, but both, I think, have lessons for us today. That's what we want to unpack.
Definitely. Let's start with Ephesus then. The text actually praises them first, right?
It does. It talks about their hard work, their perseverance, how they tested false teachers.
Yeah.
They didn't tolerate wickedness.
They were doing a lot right, doctrinally sound, active.
Ticking all the boxes, you could say. On the surface, it looks pretty good.
But then comes the but, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yet I hold this against you. You have forsaken the love you had at first. Oof.
That's the core issue. They lost their first love, that initial burning passion for Christ.
It's quite a warning, isn't it? That you can be so busy, so correct even,
Yeah.
but miss the most important thing.
Absolutely. The engine driving it all, the love had cooled off. It becomes about booty, maybe, not desire.
And that resonates, I think.
Yeah.
In any area of life, right?
Yeah.
Work, relationships, hobbies.
Oh, for sure. You start out excited, passionate, and then, well, routine sets in.
Yeah, the daily grind. And it's not always a bad thing, routine, but it can overshadow that original why.
Exactly. You're still showing up, still doing the tasks, but is the heart still in it? That's the Ephesian question, really.
So what does the text suggest? How do we avoid that? Or I guess, how do we get back if we've drifted?
Well, it gives some pretty practical advice, actually. First, it implies we need to constantly check our motivations.
Keep asking why. Why am I doing this?
Precisely. Is it love? Or obligation? Or habit? Or even, dare I say, just wanting to look good? We need to be honest there.
That takes some real self-reflection.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Second, prioritize intimacy over just activity. Don't just go through the motions.
So it's not enough to just do the service or say the words.
Right. It's about seeking that deeper connection, that real relationship behind the actions, like tending a fire, You need to fuel the actions, but you also need to keep the embers glowing.
Keep fanning the flames of the heart connection. I like that.
And that leads to the third point, engaging in heartfelt activity. Let love actually guide the actions.
So the actions flow from the love, not just performed alongside it or instead of it.
Exactly. When love's the driver, it changes the whole feel of what you're doing, gives it meaning.
Okay, makes sense. But what if someone listening feels like, yeah, that's me, the passion has faded?
Well, the text gives a clear instruction. Repent.
Repent, which sounds serious, maybe a bit churchy, but what does it mean in this context?
Yeah, it's not just about saying sorry for a specific sin here. It's more like a U-turn, a conscious decision to turn back.
Turn back towards that first love.
Yes. Acknowledge things have cooled off. Remember what it was like at the beginning, that initial inspiration, and then actively, intentionally ask for that to be rekindled.
So it's a deliberate choice to reconnect, to rediscover that foundational why.
Absolutely. It's about saying, I want that fire back.
Okay. So a moment for everyone listening, maybe. Where might routine have replaced passion for you? What's one step you could take to consciously turn back towards that first love?
Good question. Now let's shift gears to Smyrna. Very different vibe.
Totally different. No critique about lost love here. Instead, it's about enduring hardship.
Right. They were facing poverty, real, material poverty. They were being slandered, likely by neighbors or local authorities. And persecution was looming, imprisonment, even death.
It sounds incredibly difficult. A tough situation.
Really tough. And yet, what does Jesus say to them? Amidst their poverty, he says,
I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich.
Isn't that striking? It just flips our whole idea of wealth upside down.
It really does. Their circumstances look bleak, but spiritually, internally, they were wealthy, rich in faith, rich in endurance.
That's the Smyrna lesson, maybe. True richness isn't about what you have, but about your spirit, your faithfulness, despite what you lack or what you face.
And notice the text doesn't promise them escape, does it?
No quick fix. No, don't worry, this will all be over tomorrow. That's not the message.
Instead, it's about assurance within the suffering.
Exactly. Assurance of his presence. I know what you're going through. Assurance of peace, even in turmoil. And that promise of a future reward, that victor's crown for holding on.
That's so important because suffering, well, it's part of life, isn't it? Everyone faces tough times.
It's unavoidable. And this passage reminds us that hardship doesn't mean we've been forgotten or abandoned.
Yeah. The struggles are real, but they don't mean God isn't there or doesn't care.
Right. That phrase, Jesus knows and Jesus cares, implicitly speaks to that feeling of being overwhelmed that we all get sometimes. Your struggles are seen.
So, okay, if we're in one of those Smyrna periods, feeling the pressure, what's the practical advice here?
Well, first, I think it's acknowledging the feelings. The text validates their hardship. It's okay to admit this is hard. I feel overwhelmed.
Don't just put on a brave face, necessarily. Acknowledge the reality.
Exactly. And second, consciously choose trust over fear. The text warns them about future suffering, but says, do not be afraid.
Easier said than done sometimes, right? But it's a call to action.
It is. Instead of letting fear about what might happen paralyze you, the invitation is to trust. To entrust the future even when it looks scary.
Lean into faith instead of fear.
Okay. And what about support? Does it touch on that?
I think it does, implicitly. The message is to a church, a community, and it says come to God in the church. While that's specific, the principle applies broadly, doesn't it?
You mean seeking support networks, not going it alone?
Absolutely. We aren't meant to endure trials in isolation. Reaching out to friends, family, mentors, community groups, whatever your support system looks like, that's crucial.
Finding strength together. Yeah, you see that in communities facing adversity, they pull together.
They really do. It makes such a difference. You don't have to carry it all by yourself.
That's a vital point. Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, let's quickly recap those main takeaways for everyone listening.
We looked at Ephesus, and the big reminder there is to nurture that initial passion, that first love.
Yeah, constantly checking our why, making sure it's love driving us, not just routine, prioritizing that connection.
And remembering that if the fire has dimmed, we can actively choose to turn back, to repent and seek rekindling. Then we turn to Smyrna, a different lesson there.
Persevering through suffering with faith, not fear. Knowing that hardship doesn't mean abandonment.
And finding strength in that assurance of presence, peace, and the ultimate hope of reward while leaning on our support systems.
Right. And the thread connecting both, it's faithfulness, isn't it? Faithfulness in keeping the love alive and faithfulness in enduring hardship.
That's the core theme. Faithfulness to the end.
And that final thought from the devotional really lands it. Jesus is worth it.
Simple, but profound. It puts everything in perspective. All the effort, the love, the endurance.
Yeah.
It's worthwhile because of the value of what or who you're being faithful to.
Precisely. It anchors everything.
So maybe a final question for you to chew on after we finish up here. Thinking about Ephesus and Smyrna, which aspect of your own faithfulness needs the most attention right now?
Is it about reigniting a first love in your faith, a goal, a relationship, getting that spark back like Ephesus needed to?
Or is it more about persevering through a current suffering, a tough time, holding on to faith like Smyrna? Where does your focus need to be? Something to reflect on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.